Hi. So, this lesson's goal is to review with you how to convert fractions to decimals. Remember that fractions and decimals both represent parts of a number. So, here are some examples. 1/2 equals 5/10. 3/4 equals 75/100. A negative 1/10 equals a negative 1/10. All right, the best way for me to teach you how to do this would be to actually go through a variety of problems and show you how it's done. Please make sure that you have your guide in front of you and that you are following along and copying the problems. All right, so how we complete this is you divide the numerator by the denominator. Remember, we've talked about this fraction bar meaning to divide. So 3/4 is the same as 3 divided by 4. Let's take a look at what that would look like. Because 3 is being divided up by 4, the 3 is going to go inside, and then the 4 is your divisor. The very first thing you're going to want to do is we know that we can't get any 4s out of a 3. So we're going to put a decimal point, and I like to tack on 3 zeros right away because I'm going to ask you to work the problems out to the thousandths place if needed. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to bring the decimal point up into my answer right away. Obviously, 3/4 is going to equal a decimal because 3/4 is a part of a whole. So I know my answer is going to have a decimal in it right away. I can't get any 4s out of a 3, so my whole number place is a 0. So I'm going to look at the number created, and I'm going to see 30. I think what times 4 is going to give me a number close to 30. Here's where knowing my math facts is really helpful. So I know that 4 times 7 is 28. I know that 4 times 8 is 32. So 8 would be too big. 7 is going to be the number that's going to work for me. 7 times 4 is 28. I'm left with 2, and I bring down my next 0. So I ask myself how many 4s can go into 20. I know that works out evenly to 5. 4 times 5 is 20. I'm left with nothing. So I need to check if this is positive or negative. It's positive, so my decimal is also positive. 3/4 is equal to 0.75, or 75/100. Let's take a look at some other kinds of examples that you'll see. Here we have a negative 7/12. So again, get used to writing the 7 first, then the division sign, and the 12 goes on the outside. First thing I'm going to do is put in my decimal point with 3 zeros, and then I'm going to go ahead and bring my decimal point up, and I'm going to start my dividing. I can get 0 12s out of a 7, so my whole number, of course, is a 0. I'm going to look at the number 70, and I'm going to think, what times 12 gives me 70? Well, I know 12 times 5 is 60, and 12 times 6 is 72, so I'm going to go with 6. No, that wouldn't work. I'm going to go with 5. 6 would be too big. 5 times 12 is 60. That leaves me with 10, and then I'm going to arrow down my 0. So now I have to think of how many 12s can I get out of a 100. 12 times 9 is 108. That's going to be too big, so I'm going to go with 8. I know 12 times 8 is 96. Now, because I want you to work this out to the thousandths place, I'm going to divide one more time. 100 minus 96 is 4. Bring down my last 0, and I'm going to think, what times 12 gives me something close to 40? 12 times 3 is 36. 12 times 4 is 48. That would be too big, so it's got to be a 3. 3 times 12 is 36, and I can stop right there. Looks like it will be repeating. Because I have the decimal 0.583. You can round this to the nearest hundredths place, 2 places after the decimal. So because my hundredths place is an 8, I'm going to look back. 3 is less than 5, so it's going to stay an 8. Because my fraction is negative, so will my decimal. So 7/12, negative 7/12 is about a negative 58 hundredths. Okay? Now, as I'm thinking about my problems, as I'm solving these, I want to use some reasoning skills, and I want to make sure that my answers make sense. When I look at 7 out of 12, I know that that's a little over 1/2, because I know that 6 out of 12 is exactly 1/2. So when I end up with a decimal that is a little over 1/2 or 0.5, I know that I must be on the right track. Let's take a look at an example where you might see a mixed number. Here we have 1 and 5/6. Because I have a mixed number, I have a whole number and a part of a number. So what I'm going to do is I know that because I have a whole number, I'm going to have 1 and some fraction, whatever this fraction equals. I'm sorry, 1 and some decimal, whatever this part equals. So I'm going to start my answer knowing that it's going to be 1 and something. Now I'm going to go ahead and divide. 5 divided by 6. I'm going to set my problem up again with my 3 zeros. I may not have to use them all, but I like to get those set up. First thing I'm going to do is bring up that decimal point. Then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start checking. How many 6s can I get out of a 50? Well, 6 times 9 is 54. 6 times 8 is 48, so it's going to be an 8. Go through and multiply, then subtract. I'm left with 2, arrow down a 0. How many 6s out of 20? 6 times 3 is 18, that's going to be my closest one. So 6 times 3 is 18. And I'm left with 2. Again, it looks like I'm going to be repeating. So my decimal is 0.833. Since I want you to go 2 places after the decimal, I'm going to look at my ending place, the hundredths place, and I'm going to look back to the number to see if it's going to stay at 3 or round up to a 4. Because 3 is less than 5, I know that this will stay at 3, so I can come back up here and I can put in my 83, because I already have my decimal. So 1 and 5/6 is the same as 1 and 83 hundredths. The last one that I want to show you that you should be writing down, oh, actually it's the second to the last one, I have an improper fraction. So remember that an improper fraction has a numerator that's larger than the denominator. I'm still going to use the same rules. 5 divided by 3. How many 3s can I get out of a 5? I can get 1 whole 3 out of a 5. 1 times 3 is 3, and I'm left with 2. Now, I can't get any 3s out of a 2, so I'm going to put my decimal point and my zeros. Bring your decimal point up, and then I can bring the 0 down. How many 3s can I get out of a 20? That would be 3 times 7 is too much, 3 times 6. 3 times 6 is 18, and it looks like I'm going to have a repeating. So I want to go 3 places. So 3 times 6, 18, and it's going to continue to repeat. So I want to round it to the nearest hundredths place. If I look back, 6 is larger than 5, so this last 6 is going to be a 7. 1 and 67 hundredths. 5 over 3 is the same as 1 and 67 hundredths. All right, the last problem I want to show you is a negative 6 and 12/13. So I know my answer, again, is going to be negative. So I'm going to set that up right away so I don't forget. I also have a whole number with a fraction, so I know that my decimal is going to have a 6 as my whole number, and some part, whatever 12 over 13 will equal. Now again, using my reasoning skills, I know that 12 out of 13 has to be close to 1 whole, because 12 is almost all of 13. So let's see what this is going to equal. 12 divided by 13. I'm going to put my decimal point and set up my zeros right away. Bring my decimal point up, and then I'm going to see how many 13s I can get out of 120. Well, I won't be lying if I say this is kind of a gross problem, but how am I going to tackle it? Like I said, I know that this is almost all of this. So 13 times 10 is 130, so I'm going to try 9. So I'm going to go over into the margin of my paper, and I'm going to multiply 13 times 9 and see how close I get. 3 times 9 is 27, carry the 2. 9 times 1 is 9, plus 2 is 11. 117, so there it is, 9. So I get 117. When I subtract, I'm left with 3. So I bring my 0 down, and then I think, how many 13s out of 30? Well, I know that I can get 2 13s out of 30. 2 times 13 is 26, and I'm left with 4. So I bring my 0 down. Well, let's see. If I can get 2 13s out of 30, I'm guessing that I won't be able to get 4 13s out of 40, but 3 should work. 3 times 13 is 39. Yep. I can stop there because I have 3 places. I want to round to the nearest hundredth, so that's 2 places after. So this 2 is either going to stay a 2 or round up to a 3. If I look back at my 3, it's not big enough to push this up, so my answer is 6.92. Notice I already set up my negative sign, so I'm all set with that. I'm going to circle my answer. 6.92. If I think in terms of money, $6.92 is almost $7. If I compare 92 hundredths to 12 13ths, this is almost the whole thing. This is almost a whole dollar. So it makes sense to me that I'm probably correct. Make sure you have all of your practice problems shown on your guide, and we will continue practicing these problems in class.